So when you think of Dr. King, he was a mixture of that. When you think of Malcolm X, he was a mixture of these. He wasn't a mixture of all of these things, but he was a revolutionary because he was doing change in the community by coming against the status quo, right? You need revolutionaries to be able to cry out and be able to have that voice, right? But revolutionaries got to also be able to make way, because revolutionaries actually make the way for the next style of leadership, was the evolutionary style. Because where the revolutionaries usually at the start, if there's no system for the revolution to fall on, the revolutionary becomes the dictator. And this is not just in our community, this is everybody's community. If you take every revolution that's happened, and you take our Revolutionary War, if we did not come together and stabilize and have evolutionary leaders step up to take it to the next step, we would have another dictator. There would have been another king instead of the government structure that we had set up. Right? So it's important to know that, so that when revolutionary knows that it's time to pass on the baton, they make that transition easier. The problem is that because we don't realize and recognize that we exist, and the different leadership styles exist, the revolutionary can hold on too long. So let's look at the evolutionary leader. Because out of the revolution comes the evolution. And these are the leaders that come from inside of the system to take it to the next level. And the reason why sometimes the revolutionary leader cannot be the one that does it, with the exception of like a Nelson, is because unless the revolutionary has the evolutionary gene in them to be able to take it to the next door, to set things in order. An example of someone who was able to do that was Nelson Mandela. Nelson Revolution was a part of the revolution, and when he became the president, he could not be the revolutionary anymore. He had to be the evolutionary leader. And the evolutionary leader is the one that sets up the structure for the next generation to follow, and to make sure that the chain maintained. Does that make sense? Okay? And that's important. That's the next one. Missionary leaders, okay, are leaders that are called to basically to serve a specific need in the community. So an example of a missionary leader would be like a Reverend Barber. Do you know who Reverend Will Barber is? Okay, Google him. If you're in the black community, he does the Poor People Campaign. Right? And he's out in North Carolina, I think, when he's dealing with poverty as a whole. And because poverty not only affects the black community, it affects the white community as well. It's a unifying factor. But he is an advocate, and he's dealing with a specific goal. So you don't hear him ever talking about anything else but the Poor People Campaign, and how it's affecting the black community, and how it's affecting communities outside, and how poverty is something that we all should be aware of. Now, you could look at him and say, well, why ain't you over here marching on this event? Or why ain't you here marching over that? That's not his lane. And when we understand as missionary leaders, we all have a lane. And I understand my lane, but my lane still contributes to the bigger vision. Again, there's reasons this is set up to divide you. And when we do that and we have an attitude towards each other, we end up helping the system divide us even further. Right? So we need missions. So how many missionary leaders are in the room? Okay? How many evolutionary in the room? Okay? How many revolutionary leaders? You know who you are. You got revolution written all over you for some brother. It's just all over you. But we need the revolution, right? And then we go to the last one, community leaders. Is this good? So the last one is community leaders. And these are people that serve the community as a whole. So when you look at me in Good Vibes, I was a community leader, right? I was helping people to find their identity. I ended up helping them to get out the vote campaign. Because when I realized that 77,000 people in one Camden, New Jersey, and we found out that like 23,000 of them were the only ones that vote. And then I looked at it and said, how many of you are of voting age and above? Then we started to empower you to get their vote out. Because that little bit of vote could have shifted the difference in local community politics, right? It's the little things that make the difference. As a community leader, you could be a leader in education, which there's a tackle right now, the economic development, civic engagement, health and wellness that's available in our communities, youth development, arts and culture. There's so many different ways that you can make your community work for you. How can you make your community different? How many of us complain about our community? I do. Come on, I know y'all complain. Come on, we all complain, right? But you see the reason why, because you know the follow-up, what are you going to do to make it better? When I ask about who's complaining, everybody's like, yeah, but this is last, he got yes, I'm going to load the question. Because exactly what I was saying when I learned myself, I was complaining about my city. I was complaining that every time a child died, and I would notice that once I got involved, I started noticing cycles. A child would get shot, and all the churches get together and say, we're going to have prayer vigil. Like that prayer vigil was going, and listen, I'm spiritual. I'm a Christian by nature, so I believe in power of prayer. But every time the child gets shot, and we still doing the same prayer vigil. And then 3 weeks later, after the news title goes, what happens? They go back to sleep again. Don't let nobody tell you not to be awake. The opposite of woke is what? Sleep. And the people that are telling you not to be woke, they're telling you to go back to sleep. Do you get anything done when you sleep? So stay woke. Keep your eyes open. Stay awake. What changes can you do in your community that can be a small thing that shifts an entire culture? That's the power of a community leader. Now, we need all of them. Next screen. We need all of them. And when you recognize the value of each of these styles that bring, you understand that they are like 5 fingers, right? So you have 5 fingers, right? You notice if one of the fingers is missing. You might not like this pinky, right? But if that pinky was missing, you be doing this would weird without that pinky being there. So when you realize that we are all connected and we have it, we start to create spaces for that instead of treating the revolutionary as the dirty stepchild. The revolutionary has a place. And then the revolutionary understands that when the time comes, we need to be able to pass it to the evolutionary leader. The evolutionary leader steps up and realizes that the evolutionary leader can't take it all by themselves. We need missionaries and we need community leaders. And then the visionary who's up in front realizes that they can't see it all, they can't hear it all, and they can't do it all, so they realize that we need the support of all the others to be able to do that. We end up collaborating and not colliding. And how many times whole branches of government, they don't collaborate. We see more collision than we see collaboration. There was a time where you could see the two sides working together, even though they didn't agree on everything, they could work on that. Now we've gotten to the point it's total train wreck, total collision. And is anything really getting done? So you need to talk to people that don't agree. You need to hear the revolutionaries on both sides. But realize we need to be able to have the different styles to come together so that we can get a common mission. If these fingers are not working together, they're working apart. And do they work well apart? Can I do anything like this? It's when I come together like this that we can get stuff done. We got to flex our movement, especially in our community, because this is the Black Excellence in Leadership. I'm talking to y'all too. We have to do better doing like this.